Today, I have combined my multi-part series on out sapphic actors who have played sapphic with 8 new additions at the end based off your comments. In the first part, I look at 10 who realised they were queer as a result of playing gay, which I think is pretty cool, and then I look at those who perhaps didn't realise because they played gay but are sapphic themselves, for a grand total of 93 sapphic actors. It's not an exhaustive list, but enjoy.
Waverley, in many ways, was the instigator for me to have the courage to address those parts of myself.
Let's start with Dom Provost-Cholke, ready to give up on a career in acting when, in 2015, they landed the role of Waverley Earp on the Canadian sci-fi show Winona Earp. Very quickly, the character meets and falls for the local law lady, Nicole Hort, and so started the popular Way-Hortship. Dom finding out about their character's sexuality was a turning point.
I'll never forget it. I had my cup of coffee to my left, sat in this armchair in Calgary, and I opened the script and I was just like, oh, fuck. Oh my God. Okay, this is where I'm going to have to address this.
Which culminated in Dom coming out as pansexual in 2020 on their 30th birthday. They announced it through the Start the Wave charity website, saying they'd known they were queer when they were 9, but had suppressed it until they were forced to face it through playing Waverley. In 2021, they came out again as non-binary and with they-them pronouns. Perhaps they were inspired by Kate Barrell, their co-star and on-screen love interest, who came out as bisexual the year before, and perhaps Kate also came out due to playing gay, but I didn't see that acknowledged in the articles I read, so she doesn't get her own entry on this list. Although I feel like it surely must have had something to do with it. The role of Josie on the TV show Legacies apparently played into the actress Kaylee Bryant coming out during Pride Month in 2021. She posted an Instagram picture with the caption revealing that she is queer. In an interview with BuzzFeed that same month, she said, "I was still figuring out who I was and what my label was, and playing a character who was so comfortable in who she was, it was inspiring to me in a way that I think a lot of other people watching the show have been inspired." I'm assuming by that she means it inspired her to accept her sexuality. On the show, she played Josie, a pansexual who has a lovers to frenemies dynamic with ex-girlfriend Penelope Park, and there was a bit of tension between Josie and the character Hope, which didn't culminate in anything despite the fan support. Instead, she headed off screen to go study at the same place as Penelope, so I'm assuming they got back together. Putting Evan Rachel Wood on this list might be a bit cheeky, but after watching the Refinery 29 10-year anniversary reunion for the 2003 movie 13, I feel like playing the role of Tracy Freeland was a big deal for Evan Rachel Wood and her journey to discovering her bisexuality. Even though she'd played a queer teen previously on Once and Again with Misha Barton a year or so before.
It's so intense, those feelings you have as a young girl for other girls. And then you broke out and you were like, well, actually,
Yeah, I was like, yes, those were all there. And also this, like, hidden sexuality that I had not explored yet at all.
I've linked to the full reunion in the comments. She didn't actually come out until 2011, however, when she was in her early 20s in an Esquire interview, also linked below, because she didn't want people to question if this was a phase for her or not, which, given how that is not an uncommon response, I can appreciate. Kyla Lee spoke about the impact that her character Alex Danvers on Supergirl had when she had her coming out story with Maggie Sawyer, offering up what I think is one of the best coming out stories I've ever seen, because it just played so real. And it turns out there was a good reason for that. On her charity website, Create Change, she wrote an open letter saying, "What I didn't realise was how the scene where she finally confessed her truth would leap off the pages of the script and genuinely become a variation of my own IRL. My heart felt like it was going to beat out of my chest each take we filmed." She spoke about how taking the role of Alex was a long and lonely road, both for herself and her husband, not just due to how it brought her queerness to the front, which in itself must have been intense, but in how they lost dear friends for simply portraying a lesbian role. Playing the role of Sue Gilbert in the show Dickinson also had a profound impact on actress Ella Hunt. Landing the role as Emily Dickinson's best friend and lover in the queer-centric show is in large part responsible for Ella coming out as queer herself. She said in an interview with Square Mile, "It's taken me moving to New York and shooting a queer female-driven show to take pride in the bizarre sides of myself. Such an outwardly queer show that glorifies queerdom makes it less scary to enjoy these elements of myself and explore it in a way that I might not have done if I hadn't got the show." She later confirmed via Twitter, "I'm queer and I'm happy to be open about it," when having an exchange with a fan. Playing queer, however, doesn't automatically help a queer actor become comfortable with their sexuality, and in some cases, it can even push them deeper into the closet. So it was for Claire Duval, who publicly came out in 2016 at a Sundance Film Festival panel after writing, directing, and acting in the movie The Intervention, which saw her reunited with her But I'm a Cheerleader co-stars Natasha Lyonne and Melanie Linsky. She'd privately been out to her friends and family for over 2 decades, although she said of that era, "I was very closeted and very afraid of people finding out I was gay. It was the 90s. There was no conversation about sexuality. You were just not going to talk about it." So when she played the iconic queer role of Graham in But I'm a Cheerleader and people were scrutinizing her sexuality during the press for the movie, she said, "It was dangerous for me. It was such a scary time. Once it came out and we started the press cycle for it, I remember feeling like, oh shit, I need to hide, I need to stop." And consequently, she avoided queer roles after that for a long time. What eventually changed? I imagine many things, such as her ability to start making queer content like The Intervention, Happiest Season, and High School, which reflected her experience, and getting to a place within herself where, as she says, she felt settled. But I think this quote from her is also telling. So much pain comes from not accepting yourself for who you are. I've seen so many people bending over backwards and tying themselves into knots. I've had friends die because they were trying so hard to be something that they weren't. Eventually, you buckle under the weight of that. The reason why Rebel Wilson publicly came out in 2022 was because Andrew Horney of the Sydney Morning Herald had basically told her he was going to out her. She decided to take hold of the circumstance and posted about it on Instagram saying, "I thought I was searching for a Disney prince, but maybe what I really needed all this time was a Disney princess." Having said that, while she was outed against her will, the reason that she even knew she was gay was due to her recent role in The Almond and the Seahorse. She plays Sarah, a woman whose husband has memory loss due to brain injury 2 years prior. When she meets Tony, who had been dealing with a similar situation for 15 years, they bond over their situation and this leads to a love affair. Weirdly, through kissing her in my professional life, I thought, well, maybe I should do that for real in my personal life and see how it goes, which I did.
I was so nervous about doing it as well because I never kissed a woman before. And then it kind of led to this kind of discovery, and which led to my awesome partner Ramona, the stuff with Charlotte in the movie, that it was kind of like a little crack opening.
She epitomized the U-Haul lesbian by quickly finding a serious girlfriend and becoming a mum. That's nothing if not efficient. While Rebel was able to take hold of the narrative around her coming out, that was not the case for Samira Wiley, who was unwittingly outed by a fellow Orange is the New Black cast member in a print interview. Of this, Samira said, "They were talking about out gay actors in the cast and they mentioned my name and I saw it in print and I cried. I cried a lot. Everyone's journey is their own. You should be able to come out on your own terms." While it doesn't sound like playing Poussey helped her realize she was gay, it did help her come to terms with it. I think falling in love with Poussey, which is a real thing that happened to me, helped me fall in love with myself. So even if the show didn't help her come out, it helped her accept it, and it also helped her find the love of her life because she then married writer of the show, Lauren Morelli. Now this one is a bit more grey, and let me tell you why. She plays Mariah Copeland on The Young and the Restless. She came out in 2020 when, upon hearing that Ruby Rose was leaving the role of Batwoman, tweeted about wanting to take up the mantle. A fan responded that she needed to be a little gay for that, which, look, not a take that I personally agree with. This list perfectly shows why LGB characters shouldn't have to be played by out gay actors if anything does, and Cameron responded that she is bi. She followed it up by saying that it clicked for her when talking to her boyfriend, who is also bi. By the sounds of it, it wasn't because she played gay. But then in the 2021 Clexicon panel, when asked what she took away from her role as Mariah, she said,
"That I'm gay." Think I would have caught on earlier.
So it sounds like playing gay encouraged that realization at the least. And like Alex Danvers' coming out story in Supergirl with Kyla Lee, who made it onto my first video, the coming out story was so authentically and beautifully done by Cameron. It's a crying shame that The Young and the Restless are so bent on takedowns of any super edits. They should just copyright claim and reap the money from all us lady lovers who would watch it if there was a decent playlist on YouTube. Yari Limon, who played Kennedy on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, had something of a slower realization. After Tara died and Willow got all dark, she ended up with Kennedy as a love interest. She was only meant to stay on for a single episode but kept being called back. She has the distinction of being part of the show's first sapphic love scene, something that Willow and Tara weren't allowed. When speaking to AfterEllen.com, she said, "As the character evolved, I did this whole biography on her and had to figure out her history, her past. When did she realize she was gay? What was her first sexual experience? I had to do all that work on Kennedy, and to do that, I had to go into places in myself and unlock things that I probably wouldn't have ever done otherwise. I went, you know what, Yari? If this is you, go figure it out and be true to who you are." And while it took until she met the woman who would become her girlfriend to realize her bisexuality fully, it took the role of Kennedy to unlock the parts of herself she'd hidden away as a teen. This list wouldn't be complete without Ali Liebert. I clearly dismissed her too quickly from my previous list because I knew her first role was on the L Word, a tiny bit part, but it doesn't get much gayer than that. But apparently, despite having played a few lady-loving lady roles previously, it was really with the part of Betty McRae on Bomb Girls that she really started to understand it. She admits she probably should have cottoned on earlier.
When I read the pilot, I literally sobbed for like a couple hours. But I just related so deeply to her. My journey with the character helped me come out. I mean, I just did so much research, so much gay research, and I would wander around the gay part of Toronto and look longingly into bars and clubs and stuff like that. And I think if you're a straight actress rolling around doing acting exercises, I don't think you would react that strongly.
But she figured it out and hasn't looked back, because if she's in a show, you're pretty much guaranteed that she's playing queer. Now, I know that a few of you said that the role of Kelly Torres helped Sarah Ramirez to come out, but my research uncovered that that was not quite true. It was actually Sarah who suggested that Kelly come out as bi because they already knew their own sexuality and had never seen that kind of representation for themselves growing up. They did wait until after leaving Grey's in 2016 to come out as bi, and then in 2020 as non-binary. What prompted them to come out as bi? Well, an article on NBC News said that it was due to the 2016 Orlando gay nightclub shooting. Sarah told People, "As I continue to read and hear about the countless forms of violence perpetrated against us, including the Orlando shooting at the Pulse nightclub, an organic, incremental urgency to use my platform to empower those who are part of these communities that I'm a part of came over me in a way that I've never felt before." So today I have a very non-exhaustive list of 40 actors who have not only played a sapphic character, but as sapphics in real life. Okay, here we go. First of all, we've got Kristen Stewart, who became famous from Twilight, but she's been around for a really long time. She actually came out in 2017, and she came out as fluid, not wanting to identify herself as any particular label. And a lot of people pinged on her because she definitely gave off some sapphic vibes. For me, the most memorable moment of her being sapphic is that Totino skit that she did for Saturday Night Live, and she has played a number of queer roles. The first one that I'm aware of was when she was in The Runaways, which was in 2010. Then she's also played in Certain Women, Lizzie, and of course, Happier Seasons. Another person who definitely gives off the gay vibes is Aubrey Plaza, and people had been pinging on her for ages before she came out in 2016. She said that she's into guys and girls, but like Kristen Stewart, doesn't like to label herself. I'm not super up on the types of roles she's played, but I definitely know that she played gay in Happier Season and Addicted to Fresno. Next on the list is Sarah Paulson. She came out when she shared a kiss with her then girlfriend Sherry Jones at an award ceremony in 2005, and she identifies as bisexual. I think her biggest break was when she was in American Horror Story, and she's played queer in that a few times. She also played queer in Carol and most recently Ratchet, and possibly played queer in other roles. Speaking of Cherry Jones, she came out in 1995 during an award acceptance speech by thanking her then partner. She played gay in the 2000 made-for-TV movie What Makes a Family opposite Brooke Shields. Then we have Jane Lynch, obviously most famous for Glee. Now, apparently she was never in the closet. She's always more or less been out. And it's only because she gained recognition when she was on the show of Glee at the age of 50 that it became widely known that she was gay. She credits the fact that she never had to be in the closet to people like Ellen DeGeneres, Katie Lang, and Melissa Etheridge, and Rosie O'Donnell, who paved the way for her. So she had a part in The L Word where I think she was with Sybil Shepherd and they were a couple. She also did some voice work in Q-Force, which is a Netflix animated series which is super gay and super fun. And she's definitely had gay vibes with a lot of the roles that she's played. So for example, she was cast in Only Murders in the Building to be Steve Martin's character double. And another sapphic actor who was also in Only Murders in the Building was Cara Delevingne. She was in season 2 and was playing the girlfriend to Selena Gomez's character. She's also most recently been in a show called Carnival Row where she apparently plays a bi character. So I mentioned Rosie O'Donnell just before, and she came out in 2001 after 9/11. She felt like after 9/11 being gay seemed pretty trivial. Although she has said that she never really hid it. It's just that no one ever asked her. In fact, you could say that she kind of came out when Ellen came on her talk show in 1997 and Rosie agreed that she was Lebanese. Recently, she's been showing up in a few queer roles in A League of Their Own where she plays the bar owner. And then she was also in the L Word Gen Q, where she plays Tina's fiance, Kerry. Speaking of Ellen DeGeneres, she came out in 1997. She identifies as a lesbian, and her most notable queer role was in Ellen, the sitcom that she was on, where she had her character come out in season, I think it was 4. After that, she also played opposite Sharon Stone in If These Walls Could Talk Too, where they are a couple trying to get pregnant. Changing it up, we're looking at Elise Bauman. She became famous from the web series Camilla, and she herself came out in 2017 and identifies as bisexual. So aside from playing queer in Camilla, the web series, and in the movie, she also played gay in Almost Adults and most recently Under the Christmas Tree, which made it onto my top lesbian Christmas films. I couldn't talk about Elise Bauman without talking about Natasha Nego-Vanlis. She played Camilla in Camilla the web series. I'm not exactly sure when she came out, but I think it was also in 2017, and she also identifies as bi. I don't know if she's played gay again since doing Camilla the web series, but looking at her IMDb, I don't think she has. Another actor from Camilla is Caitlin Alexander. They came out in 2016 as queer and also as non-binary. I don't know if they've played queer in any other roles. They definitely were queer in the series. Okay, no rhyme or reason. We're moving now on to Auli'i Kawaio, who was the voice for Moana, which is what launched her career. She then came out in 2020 on TikTok as bi, and has since then starred in Crush, the high school teen rom-com, as AJ. She was playing opposite Rowan Blanchard, who is most famous for Girl Meets World. She came out in 2016 at the tender young age of 14 and doesn't have any particular label that she likes to claim. As far as I'm aware, the only gay role that she's played was also in Crush, where she played Paige. Now jumping on to one that surprised me just a little bit, which is Taylor Schilling from Orange is the New Black. She also doesn't want to claim any particular label, and I think the only gay role that she's ever played is in Orange is the New Black, where she played Piper. I don't know why I'm surprised by this. I just never figured that she was, and then she came out and I'm like, did the role make her gay? Got to work on that recruitment, right? Another actor from Orange is the New Black who is also queer is Leah Delaria, who is a stand-up comic. She started in 1982 and she has always been out. In fact, she's the person who came up with the U-Haul lesbian joke in 1989, so that makes her a cultural icon. She played Big Boo in Orange is the New Black, so it's also refreshing representation because she is butch presenting, and we don't get a lot of butch lesbians on our screens, do we? We also have Ruby Rose, who was on Orange is the New Black, who is also out. She apparently came out when she was 12 years old, so that's back in 1998, and identifies as a lesbian. And I'm assuming it's just always been common knowledge because she definitely gives off those androgynous vibes. And in fact, I first knew about Ruby Rose from the video that the Veronicas put out, an Australian sister duo. So she's been on Orange is the New Black. She was also playing Batwoman Batman in Batwoman Season 1 where she was playing gay, and she just generally gives off super gay vibes in everything that she does. The next actor I want to talk about is Pearl Mackie. She played Bill on Doctor Who and came out in 2020 as bi, so about 3 years after playing gay on the actual show. I don't know anything much about the other roles that she's played, so this might be the only gay role that she has done. Moving on to Niecy Nash, she came out in 2019 after splitting from her husband of 8 years and now identifies as bi when she met her wife, and she's now playing opposite her wife in The Rookie Feds. Who is this person? Well, it's Jessica Betts, who is a singer turned actress. I don't think either of them have played queer in any other roles. Moving on to an oldie but a goodie is Cynthia Nixon, who is most famous for her Sex and the City role, and she came out in 2004, and I remember this being such a piece of news at the time. It was all over the tabloids. Since then, she's gone to play queer in Ratchet opposite Sarah Paulson, and then she played queer and Just Like That, the follow-on from Sex and the City, where she played opposite Sara Ramirez. I covered Sara in one of my 2 videos looking at sapphics who came out after playing gay on screen, link in the title cards. Now, Humberly Gonzalez is not someone that I know a lot about, but it looks like she's actually played gay quite a few times. She came out, I think it was in 2021. She's played gay in Ginny and Georgia, which is a Netflix show. She was also in Utopia Falls, in Jupiter's Legacy, and In the Dark. Then we also have Sasha Lane, and I first came across her in The Education of Cameron Post. Then we have Stephanie Beatrice, who is most famous for her role in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she came out in 2016 as bi. This was around the same time that her character Rosa was also coming out as bi, and this was really big for the bi community. We also have Tessa Thompson, who came out in 2018. She says that she likes both men and women, but doesn't like to have a label. She's played queer most notably in the Thor franchise as King Valkyrie, but she was also in Dirty Computer, which was a visual album, and that was also very gay. Then we have Jen Richards, who came out in 2020 when she announced that she was engaged to a woman, and her most famous role that I am aware of is when she was in Her Story, an award-winning web series that I have talked about many, many times on my channel before. Then we have Laura Zach, who came out, well, from the very start. She was in Hashtag the series, which was made by Telefilms, and she was also in Her Story, and she actually co-wrote it with Jen Richards. Then we have Danielle Savory, who came out in 2022 on the YouTube channel Valen and Sophie, where she admitted that she has had feelings for both men and women. She's most well known for her role on Station 19, but she was also in the short film Second Team, which I covered on my free lesbian content on YouTube. Then we have Anna Paquin, who, well, she shot to fame for playing in The Piano and then winning an Oscar, but I think as an adult she was most famous for her turn as Suki in True Blood. She came out in 2010 as bisexual around about the time that she got engaged to her husband, because she said that she felt like it was important that people not misidentify who she actually is. Just because she's in a quote-unquote straight relationship doesn't actually mean that it's a straight relationship. She most notably played queer in the movie Tell It to the Bees. Then we have Demi Lovato, who came out in 2017 as sexually fluid. She's also been experimenting with her gender, so she was identifying as they, them for a bit, and I believe that she's now come back to identifying as she, her. Her sexual fluidity was teased in the song Cool for the Summer, and apparently that's how her dad realized that she was sexually fluid. And she played queer in Glee in one of the later seasons, where she had something going on with Santana. Then we have Tig Notaro, who has always been out. I think she's one of those people like others on the list. It's obvious, so it's not something she ever had to announce, and she married Stephanie Allen in 2015. Her queer roles have been on Star Trek Discovery, and she also played opposite her wife in One Mississippi. Stephanie Allen came out in 2015 and in fact didn't realize that she was queer until she met Tig Notaro, and she has gone on to be in the L Word Gen Q, where she played Alice's girlfriend for a while. Which leads me to Leisha Haley. She came out on the radio when doing some interviews for the band that she belongs to. And I believe she also played queer in a film called All Over Me. Kate Moaning only came out in 2019, although we all knew. And her most famous queer role has been Shane on the L Word and L Word Gen Q. Then we have Jacqueline Taboni, who was Finley in L Word Gen Q. I think it was in 2019 when her girlfriend started showing up on her Insta feed. They did get engaged in 2021, but have since broken it off. Then there's also Laurel Holman, who said she was never really in the closet and has been out since she was about 16 as bi. Her breakthrough role was the incredible true adventure of Two Girls in Love, which is where she was playing a baby butch in that, and then she reprised being queer in The L Word as Tina. Moving on from The L Word, we've got Kate McKinnon, who is most famous for her work on Saturday Night Live. She has also never been in the closet. In fact, one of her earlier works is The Big Gay Sketch Show. So, I mean, if that doesn't say it, what does? The only queer role I definitely know of is in the movie Bombshell, but I also feel like her role in Ghostbusters was not straight at all. And she was often doing sketches where she was playing a sapphic character on Saturday Night Live. Then we have Lily Tomlin. I think one of her most famous films is 9 to 5, and most recently the TV show Grace and Frankie. She played gay in Grammar. She was never really in the closet. It was just a really well-known secret in the industry, and she never denied it when she was asked, but she never really spoke openly about it until she did Grace and Frankie. Moving on to Cameron Esposito. They were also never in the closet, and they most recently came out as gender fluid in 2021. Their most notable queer role was in the show Take My Wife. Jumping around a bit, we've got Patricia Velasquez, who you may remember from The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. She came out in 2015 and played queer in Liz in Septiembre, which is a movie that I reviewed on my free lesbian movies on Tubi video. And here we are at the last person on my list. It is Angelina Jolie. She came out in 2003. Apparently, when she was 20, she fell in love with a woman and has been open about her bisexuality since then. The only role I know of where she played gay was in Gia, a long time ago, but I also headcanon that Maleficent was a sapphic. I'm going to start with Zoe Palmer. She came out in 2014 and identifies as a lesbian. At least I think she identifies as a lesbian. She does currently have a female partner and they have a son together. She's best known for playing Lauren in Lost Girl, which was a super popular fantasy show back in the early 2010s, where she played the love interest to the lead Beau. She then played gay again in Dark Matters, and she also guest starred in Winona Earp. I don't know if she was playing gay in Winona Earp, but Winona Earp is a very gay show. Speaking of Winona Earp, I did mention Dom in one of my previous videos that goes over actors who've played gay, but I didn't mention Catherine Barrell. She came out in 2019 and she identifies as bisexual, where she played opposite Dom in Winona Earp. I don't know if she's played gay again since then. Moving on to Kate Box. I believe she came out in 2020, but she may have been out since 2009. At least that's when she started going out with her current partner. Because actors coming out these days seems to have become less and less of an issue, sometimes it's a bit hard to find the information, so I'm not sure if she's a lesbian or if she identifies as simply queer. I do know that her partner is non-binary. She played gay in the later seasons of Wentworth, a pretty darn gay show about women in prison. And most recently, she has starred as the lead in the hilarious murder mystery Deadlock. But before she did either Wentworth or Deadlock, she was in a film called Riot, a look at the LGBTQ+ movement in Australia in the 1970s. In Deadlock, we also have the actor Madeline Sammy, who came out somewhere in the 2010s when she started dating Ladyhawke, a New Zealand musician. They identify as non-binary and uses she/them pronouns, but as to their sexual orientation, I'm not sure if they identify as lesbian or not, so I'll just say that they're sapphic. They've done a few queer roles recently. We've got them playing Archie in Our Flag Means Death. There is the delightful series Double Parked, and of course Deadlock. Speaking of New Zealand actors, we've got Sarah Wiseman, who came out in 2021, and she identifies as bisexual. She's played gay twice on Shortland Street, which is the resident New Zealand soap. And she also played bisexual in the Australian show A Place to Call Home. Another New Zealand actress, Danielle Cormack, came out in 2006. She doesn't have any labels she likes to claim, but she has had relationships with both men and women. She played Bea Smith on Wentworth in the early seasons and ended up having a lesbian love affair before she left the show. Just to make a note that the last three actresses all appeared in Xena, and they all played Amazons. Just saying. Moving away from New Zealand, let's head to Canada and talk about Mae Martin. They came out in 2021 as non-binary with they/them pronouns and identifies as bisexual. Their most notable performance is playing May in Feel Good, the Netflix series. Then we have Natalie Morales. She came out in 2017 and identifies as queer. She's played gay a fair few times. The most memorable one for me is when she played Michelle in Dead to Me, where she had a brief but enjoyable romance with one of the leads, Judy. Let's hop over to Jessica Clarke. She came out, I think, in 2010 when she got married to a woman, and she identifies as a lesbian. She had a leading role in the lesbian film A Perfect Ending, and she also hosted Coming Out for Love, an LGBTQ dating show. Keke Palmer came out in 2023 and doesn't really have a label, but is somewhere on the genderqueer spectrum and sapphic in some way. I recently saw them in the film Nope, which is a horror film. Wasn't quite for me, but Keke Palmer was absolutely delightful in her queer role. Moving on to Queen Latifah, who came out in 2021 when she publicly thanked her wife, but there had been rumours about her since 2008. I'm not sure if she identifies as bi or a lesbian, but we definitely know that she's sapphic. She's played gay for the movie Bessie. She also played Hattie McDaniel in Hollywood, Hattie McDaniel being a real person who played the role of Mammy in Gone with the Wind. And then we have Kehlani, who came out in 2018 as pansexual and in 2019 as non-binary with she/they pronouns. To my knowledge, the only role that they've played is in L Word Gen Q as Ivy when they had an affair with Shane. Next we have Gwen Turner, who came out in 1994. I believe it was with the film Go Fish. She identifies as a lesbian. So she played Max in Go Fish, which is an art house, low-budget lesbian film that was hugely popular in the mid-90s. And then she also played Diana in The Watermelon Woman, a landmark film for black queer representation. She also appeared in The Itty Bitty Titty Committee, had a spot on The L Word, and also in Wild Nights with Emily. Moving on to Holland Taylor, who came out in 2015 when she insinuated that she was dating a woman. Even though she has dated men, she says that she identifies as a lesbian, and she has played gay in The L Word, where she played Peggy Peabody, and also played the bisexual Evelyn in 2.5 Men. Okay, we're up to actor number 15. We have got Sophie Ward, who came out in 1996 and identifies as a lesbian. She played in the TV movie Village Affair as Alice, which I think helped her realize her sexuality. Next, we've got Monica Raymond, who came out in 2014 and identifies as bi. She played gay as the lead in Hightown. Then we have Jodie Balfour, who came out in 2021, and she identifies as queer. She has played Ellen in All of Mankind and Jack in Ted Lasso most recently. And as you may know, she is engaged to Abby Jacobson, who made it onto a previous list of mine. Rihanna DeBose is also queer and came out, I think, in 2015, at least that's when she came out to her grandparents, and identifies as queer. She played the role of Alyssa in The Prom. Thea Gill came out in 2003 as bisexual. She played Lindsay in Queer as Folk. Kate Siegel came out in 2008 and identifies as bisexual. She played Theo in The Haunting of Hill House. Next, we've got Bella Ramsey, who came out in 2023. They identify as gender non-binary and as a bit wavy, not straight. So I guess queer would be an appropriate label. They recently played queer as Ellie in The Last of Us. Then we have Amanda Stenberg, who came out in 2016 and identifies as bisexual. She's played gay in the horror film Bodies, 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 and is also in the vampire film as My Animal playing gay. The comedian Margaret Cho, I believe, has kind of always been out. I think even back in the 90s when she had her sitcom, it was sort of an open secret that I think no one really cared about. She identifies as bi. I feel like she must have played gay quite a few times, but the only one that I could think of was in the film Fire Island. Then we have Jessica Alexander. I believe she came out in 2020 and she identifies as bisexual. She played Olivia in the show Get Even. Next we have Ari no Tatamaso, who, well, never came out. They've always been out. They're gender non-binary with they, them, and he pronouns. So I don't know, does that make them sapphic? Anyway. Their most prominent role is playing Cynthia on Grease, Rise of the Pink Ladies, where they get to have a sapphic love story. In the show, they were playing opposite Nima Wilson, who came out, well, I think it was in 2023 with the Toronto Star article. They identify as queer, gender non-binary with she, he, they pronouns. From the sounds of it, they have played gay a lot, including Jack on Degrassi Next Generation and Lydia in Grease Rise of the Pink Ladies, and I'm assuming quite a few more. Then we have Havana Rose Liu. I don't know when she came out, but she identifies as pansexual, and she has most recently played Isabel in the film Bottoms. Next is Liv Hewson, who came out in 2016, identifies as gender non-binary with they, them, and has referred to themselves as gay. They played Dory in Let It Snow and Van as a teen in Yellow Jackets. Also in Yellow Jackets is Jasmine Savoy Brown. She says she never really came out, just started posting of pictures of herself and her girlfriend somewhere in the mid-2010s, but confirms her orientation in 2019 as queer, although she was referred to as a lesbian in that Out magazine article. So aside from Yellow Jackets, she also played a genderless pansexual cartoon character called Evra in a show called Final Space. In spot number 30, we have Erin Kellyman, who, like Jasmine, always seemed to be out, or at least has been posting pictures with her girlfriends for a very long time. But I think this became more widely known in 2021 when she got the role of Jade in the show Willow, and she identifies as a lesbian. Her on-screen partner, Ruby Cruz, is also queer. Given how casual these coming outs are these days, it's hard to say if it was the article in the LA Times in 2022 or if she was already out before that. But she identifies as queer. Obviously, she played Kit in the TV show Willow. Then we have Alana Glazer, who I'm not sure when she came out, although I'm assuming it's during or after her hit show Broad City, because she did say that the show helped her realize her own sexuality. She identifies as queer. Obviously, she played Alana in Broad City. She's also played Chelsea in the TV show The After Party. Next, we have Thunderbird Dinwiddie, who was previously known as Tracy. She came out in 2010, and I believe she identifies as bisexual. At least she said that she has fallen in love with both men and women. She most famously played Peyton in the film Elena Undone. She also played Jamie in the film Stuff and Kate in Raven's Touch, and maybe she played queer more than that. I just don't know. Second to last, we have Sue Perkins, who was outed as a lesbian in 2002 by her ex-girlfriend. She played Fran on the show Hitmen, and she played Sarah on Heading Out. And in the final spot, we have got Chloe Grace Moretz. She came out in 2021, but was publicly seen dating both men and women prior to this, so it wasn't a huge surprise, and she identifies as queer. Her most famous role is playing Cameron in The Miseducation of Cameron Post. Okay, before I get on to the additional 8 sapphic actors, I just wanted to say that it wasn't Amanda Stenberg, it was Amandla Stenberg, so my bad. And apparently now she IDs as a lesbian, as does Kehlani, so a couple of corrections there. Then we have Alba Flores, who IDs as a lesbian, and she was in Money Heist and Locked Up. Then we have Heather Peace, who identifies as a lesbian. She was in Lip Service, Waterloo Road, and EastEnders. We've got Katie O'Brien, a lesbian, who's in the upcoming film Loves, Lies, Bleeding with Kristen Stewart. We've got Juani Feliz, who is queer, and she is in Harlem. Jodie Foster, a lesbian, who was recently in Naiad. We've got Jess Sayer, a lesbian, who is in Shortland Street, and then also in another TV series called Awkward Love. And finally, we've got Roberta Colindres, who is queer. She was in Vida and A League of Their Own. And there we have it, 93 sapphic actors who have played sapphic on screen. I'd love it if you subscribed, and why not check out the video on your screen. Until next time, lady lovers.